Hello, and thanks for purchasing a zero-turn snowplow or considering purchasing a zero-turn snowplow. This video is going to show you how to remove the deck and install the Gen 3 snowplow. I'm going to move pretty quick, so if you're trying to figure it out, you'll just have to hit pause and kind of follow along. That'll be the best way recommended. So first things first, removing the mower deck. You'll probably have a screw right back here that you'll have to take out first. It's metric of some sort, but I can't remember what size. So for that part, you're on your own, but the rest of the bolts, I'll be able to tell you what they are. So pull that off. Gives you a little better look of what's down there on the mower deck. Next thing I'm going to do is lower the mower deck down so you can get at these side clips back here. There's two little clips, and you can pull these little, I said clips, but they're pins. And you can lift up on the mower deck to kind of take some of the pressure off of them. And give it a little shake. Pull the cotter pin out. You're trying to remove this pin in here. You lift up on this extra, you lift up on this extra little pin here, and it pulls and slides right out. So I always just put those right back in there, exactly how they came out. You got one of those on each side. Helps to put a hand on the deck and lift up on it just a little bit, shake it down there while you got it. Once you get both those out, you can move the mower deck back in the full upright position. You also have the same thing in the front here, but before that, I find it a little bit easier to remove the belt, or at least get it started to unhook. I pull the plastic covers off mine. I keep them off all summer long. That way you can get all the grass off there, because that grass, when it sits on around the pulleys, it's going to rust the deck out. You don't want that. So I always pull it off. That way I can quickly blow it off. If you do have it off, you can quickly grab a hold of the adjustment pulley, pull exactly straight across from where the spring is, and it should relieve some of the tension on the belt. At that point, you can just slip it off any of the pulleys. It doesn't really matter. Once that is loose, you can go around to the back of the tractor, reach under there, and just slide the belt off of the engine, which is the drive side of it. From there, you have a U-shaped bar that goes across the front. That's the only thing that's remaining holding the deck on. If you pull the deck forward just a little bit, you will see that it rolls, or it moves forward really easy. So now you need to remove the same type of clips from the U-bar holding the mower deck on. So pull that off, and this U-bar is kind of spring-loaded on there, so you might have to put a little bit of force on there, but it's the same type of clips as the back edge of the mower deck. So just go ahead and pull those off. Put them back in there so you don't lose them. And now you can just slide the deck right out the side of it. Alright, now that the mower deck's off, we're going to move on to the snowplow section of it. So, I got all my tools set up here. This is exactly how you're going to get it from when you're pulling it out of the box. It's going to look just like this. So the first step that you need to do is remove this blade mount and get it mounted how it's supposed to. So you're going to need two 3/4 wrenches. Slide one right in the bottom. You'll see there's a standard nut under there. If you have a nice handy dandy driver, it makes it a little quicker. But you can pull this off, so now this is two pieces. There's a regular standard nut. You will not need that. That's just for packaging. So you can kind of discard that, set it off to the side, whatever you need to do. So now you have this piece here, and what you need to do is mount this to the bottom of this main frame. So you'll see there's two of these little retainer clips under here, and you'll see that there's a little bit of a ledge, just a very little bit. That is made so that this bracket can just slide up underneath there. So what you're going to do is slide this bracket underneath there. It's a little bit snug because it does have fresh paint on it, so you got to be aware of that. Try to line up this hole right here. That's the 1/2 inch hole that you can put a pin in if you want to. And then this larger bolt is a 5/8. You're going to put the 5/8 through there with a couple washers as well as the lock nut. So you can slide that right up from the bottom side. Put that in there. Put the lock nut on. And then we can go ahead and snug that up. Now this, you want it snug, but you do not want it tight. If it's too tight, it won't spin, which means the tractor, the snow blade will not angle. So I'm going to tighten it all the way first, and then just crack it loose just a little bit. Now this is a lock nut, so it's going to keep it from loosening up. I actually took that a little bit too far. You want it to be able to move, but not real easy. So once you get that on there, you'll see with a little bit of effort, it should turn and pivot. You can see on here, your retainers, just in case something was a little bit screwed up, your retainers should look like this, where you have a little slot for this to slide right in there. And then it will spin and line up those holes. So that's that step. From the top, it looks like this, which it will pivot. So the next step is going to be installing this onto the tractor. All right. Now you're going to want these two larger 5/8 bolts in your hand. Keep them handy. And I'll lay a piece of foam down here just so I don't scratch it up for no reason. And you can slide this right into between your two brackets here, the two-hole brackets. And I'm going to suggest you use the rear two holes. The geometry is just slightly better than if you use the front two. Now, if you're trying to keep the mower deck on there, you can use the front two. You'll just have to use some slightly different adjustment on where the foot pedal mounts on. So if you put this in here, put this foot pedal in here, or excuse me, this frame mount in, and you find that it's really tight, one thing that you can try doing, putting it in on an angle, and then turning it in flat. Like I said, I'm using the rear two holes. And you can just slide these 5/8 bolts through the holes in the frame, and do your best to try to get them started. Now those should have a little bit of powder coat right in the nut there. That's going to keep it a little bit snug. And you want it snug, but if you tighten it up too much, the plow will not go up and down. So this is something that you're going to have to, for the first year, first season, I'm guessing, I don't know yet because I haven't ran this setup for a full season, I'm guessing that you will not have to put any Loctite on it. But after the first year, you may have to start to put Loctite on those as you put them in so that it stays in there even though that it is not entirely tight. So now we have this on here. This is where the snow blade is going to mount to. It's going to lift up and down just from this angle. So the next thing I'm going to do is set the snow blade in front and start to add that. Alright, next I am going to set the snow blade right in front of it on the ground here. A piece of cardboard so I can slide it without scratching it. I'm going to slide, well, so much for that. Slide the snow blade right back in it, and the snow blade should go right just between these brackets. Then I'm going to use the 2 1/2-inch bolts. One of them is the one that was holding this blade mount to this frame mount. So you're going to have to use that, and then put a washer, and you should see that there's an extra lock nut, 1/2-inch lock nut in there. So each side will get 2 washers and a lock nut. So I can get mine off. Slide those through there. It's not real critical what direction you put these in, but I like to put the nuts toward the inside. A little cleaner look. Oops. Oh, I got my washer there. Alright, got those on. Now I'm going to show you how to install the overload trip springs on the new Gen 3 snowplow kit. This spring is going to be a Century Spring C273 model. And to start with this, you're going to grab the group of hardware that you have, noting that there's 2 different size washers on there. Go ahead and take the first set of washers off, take the nut off. Now, you're going to take just one washer off. Take note of what side of the spring has the larger opening. You can grab the larger opening size. You can slide it right up here. Make sure that it slides around where it will be attached. So go to the opposite end of that. Add your bolt through with one washer. Add the second large washer. Add the nut. Tighten it all the way in to the end of the threads. Add one washer. And now, to assemble it, to add it to the snowplow, you want to make sure you're lifting the spring up above, and you want to hook the spring from the bottom and going up. That way your loop hooks around that direction. Then down here at the bottom, you'll see that it's just a little bit tight. For that hole, you'll just want to get the end started and kind of pry it into place a little bit. Add your second small washer and your lock nut. Tighten those up with a wrench. And repeat for the other side, and you're all set with the spring. Let's see, next we can add on the spring plates. These spring plates should have 2 of them. There should also be some 3/8 bolts. These are the larger of the small bolts that you see here. What you're going to do is you were going to mount these right about each edge of where this frame mount is. So there could be multiple holes that you could hook them to. It's not really going to screw anything up if you get the wrong set of holes, but you kind of want to center one on each side of here. I just realized I forgot to put my bolt in here, but you guys already have that. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a spring coming from this piece of angle iron down to the bolt that's hooked there. I'm going to go ahead and put these on. Might be a little tight going into your mower for the first time. You might even throw them in. That's not a problem. Put a couple washers and nuts on the bottom. Tighten those right up. Over here, and you can add the second one. Actually, I just realized that I might have moved mine over a little farther than I needed to. Ready. I'm going to add the 2 3/8 bolts. You should already have those on there, but I do not. I just pulled this out of the box myself. You'll see there's 3 holes on the sides here. That's just for adjustment, depending on how much upspring you want, how much spring pressure you want lifting the plow blade up. If you want it closer to the ground, you can slide it back to the rear of the tractor. If you want a little bit more, you can slide it to the front of the tractor or closer to the plow blade. Now it's starting to look like something. Next step is add these 2 springs on here. These are the lift springs. You'll notice that one side of these springs is going to be opened up a little bit more than the other. What you're going to want to do on those is hook it to, I'd probably start with the tip, the upper outermost hole on these spring plates. And you can also notice that these spring plates, the arm that goes up is toward the center here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this on around here, hook it onto there, do the same thing here. Sliding it in from the top, looping it, and that hooks it a little bit better as opposed to if you're just hooking on there. Now, lift up the plow blade, and you're just going to hook it onto the head of that bolt right down there. So now, the plow blade lifts up in the air like that. Now, if you need more adjustment, like I said, you can move the bolt out to lift it up higher off the ground or forward if you want it lower. So the last part of it is going to be installing the foot plate. That's going to be the foot pedal that you're going to push down to adjust the tractor. So, I kind of know a little bit by experience that I'm going to try the rear hole. If you're a little bit shorter, use the rear set of holes. It's actually set up so you can use 2 sets of holes, and you're going to use the smaller of the 4 bolts hardware that you find in your package. These are 5/16 bolts, but they're going to require a 1/2 inch wrench. Same size as your eye bolts. I'm putting a washer on the top as well as a washer and a lock nut on the bottom. Start all 4 of them before you tighten any of them up. Alright, now you have your foot plate on there. For the most part, this is what you're going to end up with. You can put the foot plate back in here. For the most part, you are ready to go. You'll have to tighten up some of the hardware. The 1/2 inch bolts, these larger ones, back in this area, that is going to be a 3/4 inch wrench. You can go ahead and tighten those up. Do as I did with this large one here. Tighten it up till it's all the way tight, and then back it off maybe 1/4 of a turn. And that way, when you pull on it, you shouldn't feel too much. You should just feel the tension of the springs there when you tighten those ones up. It also came with a pin. This pin is going to be if you want to lock the plow blade from angling. So that just slides right down in this hole here. The first couple times you put it in, you may have to actually hammer or tap it down a little bit because the powder coat is fresh in there. It has a little bit of thickness to it. So anyway, once you get that worked in there, that pin will keep it in the straight position if you want, or you can actually turn it to one of the angled positions and put the pin back in as well. That's completely up to you. But at the same time, it is also safe if you want to keep the pin out, which will allow it to move back and forth. That is fine to do it like that as well. So you'll see that it does move back and forth. And then as far as the operation goes, you're all set. You can push down. As long as you're moving forward, the plow blade will probably stick down to the ground because it does have a little scraping pressure to it. And then when you lift off, the blade will come up, and then you can back up, drive, go wherever you need to. And once in a while, you'll find that you do get a little bit of snow stuck to the snowplow blade. And if that's the case, just smack it down on the ground a little bit, and that'll usually come off without any issues. So that's the installation. You can finish up just tightening, snugging up any of the bolts there, and that's about it. Thanks for watching.